Hello! Before we get into the video, I wanted to let you know that I launched my undated bullet journal. This is a full bujo with pre-designed spreads, so you don't have to spend time making art, and instead can just customize this journal for yourself. It's also undated, so you can start it whenever you want, or skip a month. If you're interested, I'll have the link below to my online shop. Okay, love you, hope you enjoy the video. Hello, and welcome to my 2024 bullet journal setup. I'm super excited to announce that the journal I'm going to be using for the next year is the Starlight Meadows journal by Kuma Stationery. In a recent video, I asked you guys to poll and see which one of two you guys wanted me to use, and I think you guys voted on this one, but it was my favorite anyway, so I really wanted to use it in the first place. So anyway, I have a really fun setup planned for you guys today. I feel like I went really maximal, honestly, for like an opening setup. Usually I do something really simple and minimal for the first opening spreads of the year, but this time I said no, we're gonna go all out and do something crazy. So I hope you guys enjoy this setup. Okay, so starting with the cover page of my journal that's going to say 2024 in very big letters. So as you can see, I'm using a pretty serif-y font, and then in the background I also have like a celestial design sketched in. So when I was planning out this theme, I didn't know if I wanted to do something floral and naturey, like with leaves and flowers, or if I wanted to do something celestial with like stars and planets and that kind of thing as the theme. If you're new to bullet journaling, I'll take a step back. So the bullet journaling theme is like a style of bullet journaling. A lot of people do this, although you don't have to, but people like to do different themes or like aesthetics and art styles that they use in their bullet journal setups every month. And I definitely like to do this, and it's fun because I get to switch aesthetics and try different types of art styles and design styles every single month. However, for my opening spreads, when I'm just starting a new journal, I usually do something really minimal and simple. I like to match my designs to the cover or color of the journal, but nothing more than that. However, this time I really went all out and I really wanted to make this bullet journal setup like super busy and super fun and creative. So yeah, so I have this really cute design that I got from Pinterest on the right, and then I'm actually going to take away the journal for a second and I'm going to pull out a piece of sticker paper because you guessed it, if you're not new to my channel, you would know that I love doing portraits with alcohol markers, and I decided to add one into my bullet journal setup for this year. Along with bullet journaling, I also like to do art on the side, and I go through phases of like creative waves, but recently I've been in a very creative mood where I just really want to draw and like be creative in my own sketchbook aside from bullet journaling. So I've been drawing a lot of portraits because that's usually my favorite type of art, and I've been coloring them in with alcohol markers because I also love alcohol markers a lot. And I've done this a lot in my bullet journal where I use alcohol markers on sticker paper, that way I can use them freely and don't have to worry about bleeding through, since alcohol markers bleed through most papers, but using sticker paper means that they won't actually bleed through the paper because you're literally just sticking it into your journal. So I'm using this technique that I've used many a time before, but again, I usually don't put any designs like this, like super intense art, in my opening setups, and I also usually don't include portraits in my bullet journal. So this is something new for me, but it's something that I like because I feel like, and you'll see this when I start coloring her in, but I think she really matches like the cover of the journal and the theme of the journal. It's almost like the journal is, or she is, an embodiment of the journal style, or like the cover style, if that makes sense. And this might be thinking a little bit too far into it, but I did try to take inspiration from like the color of the journal whenever I drew this picture and started coloring her in. As far as my reference, I did take inspiration from this photo here on the left. Like I said, I take a lot of inspiration from artists and creators on Pinterest and kind of mold their ideas into some inspiration for my own journals. So definitely go check out these people over here. But also, I think I added my own little touches to this art, especially with the color palette. Like I said, I'm using a very dark reddish purple that matches the color of the journal. And as you'll see in a minute, I also went out and bought some gold gel pens from, I think it's Jelly Roll, and I used those and bought them specifically for this theme because, as you saw, the journal has a gold design on the cover and it also has gilt edges, so I wanted to add gold designs to this artwork and also to the rest of my bullet journal setup. That way it really matches with the theme of the cover page. I'll talk more about my gold ideas later, but as far as the drawing goes, I used a Tombow Fudenosuke hard tip to do all the line art, that way I knew that nothing would bleed and smudge. And then I'm using my Ohuhu alcohol markers and also some Senjoki alcohol markers, I believe, kind of mixed together to color in and do all the layering here. And like I said, I'm not afraid to use really dark saturated colors because I know that it's not going to bleed through, or it will actually, but I'm going to be sticking it into the journal anyway, so it does not matter because it'll just bleed right onto the adhesive and it's perfectly fine. Now, if you guys watched my November bullet journal setup, you did see me draw a portrait in that cover page, and I mentioned later on Instagram and on YouTube how I used alcohol markers on sticker paper, but when I closed the paper, it actually, like, the sticker paper didn't absorb the ink very well, and so the ink bled onto the other side of like the journal when the journal was closed, and so I had like ink splotches and like yellows on the other side of the pages, and it was super annoying to me and made me not like my November theme like at all. Now, you may be wondering like, why am I doing this again? But the difference is I'm going back to my old sticker paper here. So this is Online Label sticker paper. I love this brand so much. Not sponsored today, but I do really think that their products are amazing. I used a different type of sticker paper for my November setup, and I realized that was a bad decision because the sticker paper did not hold ink very well and it did bleed everywhere. However, for this paper, it's so absorbent, super high quality. Again, non-spons, but that's why I feel comfortable doing a style like this again, is because I know that this paper does not let me down. It hasn't in the past, and I'm excited to just go back to my roots and something that I know is going to work for me here. To talk about my coloring technique for a second, honestly, I draw a lot of portraits, so a lot of this was just second nature as far as coloring it in, which sounds a little cocky, but like I do have a lot of practice with drawing portraits. One thing is I always have a second layer of shadow in the same color marker, like for example, under her neck, her cheekbones, anything that's covered by her hair is going to have a shadow on her skin, that kind of thing. And then you can also use a different color to add even deeper shadows. Same thing on the hair. So she has pretty curly and bouncy hair, as you can see. So I tried to use a darker shade of brown and like pull streaks towards the middle of like each curl. That way there's like a little highlight of the lighter brown in the middle. And I also went in afterwards, as you can see, with a white gel pen to add even brighter highlights in her eyes, on her nose, lips, in her hair. I also added some white outlines around her entire body just to separate her from the background, because while I really like the color palette that I used here and I think that the browns in her skin are super pretty, it is a lot of dark color that doesn't necessarily contrast with the maroon background, and so I wanted to make sure that she really popped from the back, and so a white outline really did that for me. So now I'm just going to cut around this image because it does not stop here. So I do love the fact that she is in this little frame, like this little maroon burgundy colored frame. However, I decided in my bullet journal setup for this year that I wanted to do something not so minimal and use a lot of contrast. I've done this before, especially in May and June of last year, but I'm going to be pasting in some black paper in the background of this setup to really make this drawing pop against the page and to add a lot of dark contrast in this opening setup. So as you can see, I cut out a black rectangle that was the same size as the original artwork, but because I cut around her little framing, she fit right in the middle there. And then I'm going to use a gold gel pen, like I said earlier, to add a couple more designs. I'm doing this little star motifs in the corner. I guess you can call them like stars, maybe suns, I'm not quite sure, but I do this a lot throughout the setup, as you're going to see. And then I also used the gold to add more details to her outfit, especially to her necklace or like her choker. I wanted that to be metallic as well. So it's hard to see directly like facing down from the camera, but I'll show you in a minute like how the light reflects against it when you look at the page, and it's super pretty. I've strayed away from using like gold or silver metallic pens in my bullet journal before because usually I just don't feel like they're really that shiny, and I'm not a paint person. I know that people use like gold metallic like watercolor, but again, I don't really paint very much in my bullet journal, so I have never done this before, but I'm really glad that I took the time to like actually get some new stationery as far as the gel pens go and get something that sparkles, because I mean you can see it now, like in the light it's super pretty, and I love the reflective nature of this artwork. So literally like 8 minutes in, it took forever to do the cover page, but it literally took me like over an hour in real life. So as you can see, I'm speeding things up quite a bit, but now you can move on to the next page in the setup, which is going to be my grid spacing cheat sheet. To be totally honest with you guys, whenever I make bullet journal spreads in my journal, I usually just use a ruler because most bullet journals have a half centimeter dot grid, and so you really can just use centimeters to count how many dots are across and to, you know, measure out your boxes and stuff when you're making layouts. However, I think the grid spacing cheat sheet is still a really good idea. Basically, this is a spread that counts how many dot spaces are on your dot grid bullet journal pages, and then you can divide it into halves, thirds, quarters, whatever dimensions you need. That way when you're making bullet journal spreads later down the line, you already know how many dots you need to count to perfectly center every box. Like, it's a good concept, and I used to use this all the time. However, I've used the same A5 size bullet journal since like 2021. It's different bullet journals in different companies, but they all have the same dimensions. And like I said, I use a ruler when I make weekly spreads and layouts anyway. So it's like I really don't need a grid spacing sheet. And every year I think I'm like, do I really need this? Can I maybe just take the spread out of my opening setups? However, I still want to make one for you guys and for you guys to see like my interpretation of it and get some inspiration from me, and also because I have a year at a glance spread on the right here, as you can see me starting to set up now. So I figured if I'm already going to be writing something on the right, I need something to put on the left anyway. I might as well just make a grid spacing cheat sheet for anyone out there who wants the dimensions. So if you want to pause this video and look really close, I'll put the dimensions here on the screen for how many dots across is a quarter, a third, and half, both vertically and horizontally. This is in an A5 bullet journal, by the way, so if you have a different size, this will not be the same to you, but all you need to do is number them across and, divide by 2, divide by 3 to get whatever dimensions that you'd want. And this is super helpful, especially for those who are new to bullet journaling, to figure out how to lay out their spreads later down the line. If you want a full tutorial about how to make a grid spacing cheat sheet, I might make a YouTube short really soon, so look out for that if you're a beginner and want a full tutorial. On the right here, I'm doing a year at a glance like I mentioned before, so just as a spoiler, the next spread is going to be my future log, but I actually am not putting calendars in that spread. I'll show you in just a minute what it's going to look like, but because of that, I still want to have a page that has basically all of the yearly calendars already laid out for me, so it did cramp my hand as usual to write all 365 days of the year in one big spread, but once it's done, it's not only super satisfying to look at, but it is super helpful to reference this when I'm making my monthly setups because I already know what the calendar looks like. It's a little easier than having to pull up my phone and look for the right month. And also, I am a Monday calendar girl, so all of my calendars start on a Monday, so this may be a little bit different than yours. However, I still made space for those months that have 6 weeks and not 5, so as you can see, September the 31 or 30th, I guess, comes down an extra day, and so there isn't the same spacing. However, I feel like this is fine because there's spacing that's consistent for all of the other ones. So I think this works out pretty well, and it's just a nice satisfying spread to look back on, and also a good reference point for me later in the year. After erasing everything, this spread is a little bit faster than the first one, and let's move on to the future log that I was talking about. I feel like it's been a trend in the bullet journaling community to do Dutch doors for future logs. I believe it was Amanda Rachel who started this idea, but I've seen people do this for the past couple of years now, maybe even 2 years, and I haven't ever actually gotten the guts to do it, but this year I decided I would like to. The problem is I usually use my bullet journal for 6 months, and then I get a new bullet journal in July for the second half of the year. That's what I've been doing since 2021, and it works perfectly because I can't fit 12 months into one journal, but I do use the extra pages at the end, throughout the year, just for random, paper, scrap, notes, sections, all that stuff. So I do use the entire journal, but basically I'm telling you that I use 2 in a year, okay? So whenever I make my bullet journal setups, for the second half of the year, I only need a future log for, those 6 months. However, since this is an opening, beginning of the year setup, I'm starting 2024 in this journal, I would like to have all 12 months of the year put here. That way, if I have future dates later down the line, I have space to write them down. That's basically what a future log is for. It's like an overview of the entire year for you to put dates down. And so I'd like to have an overview of the entirety of 2024, even though I'm only using this journal until June of this year. So because of that, I decided to do a Dutch door, kind of like people have been doing on the internet. As you can see, I already cut this before I started filming, but there is a little square that was once a full page that I cut the top, bottom, and right side of. And so it's like a little tab in the middle that flips back and forth. And then on the tab, there are 3 months. And then as you can see, there's 6 months on this spread, and then you flip it over, and there's 6 months on the other. So that's going to be my January through December of this year. However, because I'm doing a Dutch door and I wanted to save space on the right to do some art that I'm going to be adding in that's also reflected on the left, I had to kind of shrink the sizes horizontally of each month, and so these are actually 6 dots across and not 7, which is why I couldn't put calendars in these boxes like I usually do to kind of show the months of every year, because there's not enough space for 7 days a week in every single box. So the year at a glance spread on the page before is my reference in case I need a visual of what the year looks like calendar wise, but on this spread, this is where I will put any dates in the future, like birthdays, to due dates, doctor's appointments, anything like that. If you do the bullet journal system like I do, I usually set up 1 month at a time. So for example, in the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be setting up my January bullet journal setup. However, I don't have February done, obviously, until I get to the end of January, beginning of February. So if I have a doctor's appointment that I'm scheduling in February, but my bullet journal setup isn't actually made for that month yet, that's where this spread comes in handy, because I can just put it in here, and then once I do make that month, I'll just migrate all of the dates from this spread into the monthly setup, if that makes sense. Since this is a new bullet journal setup, and I know a lot of people start bullet journaling at the beginning of the year, I'm trying to give you guys a little bit of inspiration and information in case you are a beginner to bullet journaling. But I also want to let you know that I made an entire video about how to start a bullet journal for beginners. So I'll have it linked down below in case you want to go watch that after you watch this, just to get some more basic knowledge about the bullet journaling system and prepare you if you're going to start a bullet journal for the new year. Once the months were done, I decided to add this little detail on the left and right. So this is something I also got from Pinterest. Here's the inspiration picture right here. And the gold is super nice because it shows up on both black and white. So it's obviously metallic, but even whenever the light isn't directly shining on it, you can see it on both papers, which is why I used the design and used the same drawing just mirrored on both sides. And then to add to the drawing, I'm using a black pen to finish out the details on the left, and then I'm using a white pen to finish out the details on the right. So it's really like a mirror image of each other. It's white on black and black on white, and I think that's super cool and creative. So it's a really simple spread, all included. There's no monthly calendars everywhere. There's not a title that actually says future log. And also, from my most recent bullet journal, I started tracking the stats of my YouTube and Instagram follower counts. And I intend to do that this year too, because I like to just have a record of what months I did better in, that kind of thing, in my bullet journal. Not that numbers are super important, but it's just good to have kind of a record of those things. So I do intend to write that information at the bottom of every month in the future log. However, I didn't actually make a specific box for it. Just know that I'm going to be putting it there too. Okay, so we've moved on to the goals page. As you can see, I'm a little bit behind. There's not much going on here. Again, I'm just using a lot of black paper to add some contrast. And I'm also using the gold to add special little designs of stars, sparkles, dots, planets, that kind of thing. On the left here, I have a little chart that says went well and then did not. So this is a reflection of last year, which goals I completed, which ones I did not. Below it, I have space to write my main goals of the year, and then on the right, I have a big space for my letter to my future self. Now, I am a huge goals person, and the reason that this spread is super simple is because I do a lot of my goal planning digitally. So I have a Notion page where I really go into depth into many of my goals for the year and track everything with numbers and progress bars. So because of that, this spread is relatively simple. It's a basic dumbed down version of what's on digital form. However, I'll show you guys my Notion tour in a few videos so you guys can see what it looks like over there. But for now, this is just what I track in my bullet journal, and it's a pretty simple system, but also this probably could be enough for some people. You don't need to even add digital versions. This is probably a pretty good way to just write down some goals, see what went well, see what you can improve this year, and then also letter to your future self that maybe you write and then don't read until the end of the year and see how far you've come. It's always super fun for me to read my old letters to myself because it's almost kind of emotional to be where I was at the beginning of the year and then how much I've changed in the span of a year. It's just really inspiring to me. Oh my goodness, and these voiceovers, I feel I'm always catching up after myself because I go pretty fast when I speed up the videos this much. But now we are in the last spread of the setup, which is going to be my book tracker and my period tracker. And I always make the joke that these spreads are also kind of irrelevant because I have two apps that I track my goal of book reading on, Goodreads and Storygraph, and I usually have a 50 books in a year goal, so I already have an app for that. And I also use an app to track my period. So it's I don't need a spread for either of these, but I still love to do it anyway. I feel it's super fun to just add extra fun spreads into your bullet journal. I mean, these are, resourceful and actually useful, true, but they're also fun to set up and fun to use and just to track in them. So I make them anyway. It's just a fun time. On the left, I have a book tracker that's really super simple. It's just one big chart that will have the number of the book, the name of the book, the rating that I gave it out of 5 stars, and the date that I finished it. Like I said, I do read usually about 50 books in a year. I've had that goal for the past 3 years, and I've hit it every single year. So that's also my goal for next year. And I also have usually a goal for page count as well. This past year, 2023, I had the page count of 20k pages in a year, and I'm so close to finishing this. I am currently recording this on December 17th, so I have a little bit of time, but I'm really close to finishing that goal, so I really hope I complete it. And also, I'm going to do a reading bullet journal setup in just a couple of weeks. Actually, I may do a couple videos about my reading journal. So I don't actually have a reading journal separately, but I do love making book spreads in my journal because I am a huge reader, and I know a lot of you guys are too. So definitely keep an eye out for that coming on my channel very shortly, because I'm going to talk about all the books that I read this past year and then also some plans I have for my reading in 2024. On the right, like I said, I have a period tracker, and like I said, I already have an app that I track a lot of this with, but I do like to do it in my bullet journal anyway. So it's just a very simple chart that's going to have 12 months of the year and then the dates going down. However, like I mentioned before, I actually only use this journal until June, so Although there are 12 months, I'm starting this tracker in July of 2023. That way I can write out like my cycles that have already happened, and then whenever I write down the next 6 cycles, it's easier to see a pattern when you look at like the past 6 months as well. So I'm just going to be including that as well. And then of course in my new bullet journal for the second half of 2024, I'll do like whatever months I need to then. So this only lasts to June, so it's from July 2023 to June 2024. On the right, I also have a space to write notes because any symptoms that I'm tracking, I want to write information about over here. And then just to kind of add more fun art to the spread, I'm again adding the gold detailing and designs that I've added into all of these pages. Honestly, it's super fun because I wasn't really putting that much thought into it. It was just a lot of circles and triangles and lines, honestly. But what I mean by like this is pretty maximal, it's like adding these black backgrounds and gold colors and like that super intense drawing at the beginning of the setup. Like that's something I never do. If you watched my old like bullet journal setups, they're usually, I mean specifically for the new year bullet journal setups, they're usually very minimal because I'm usually very intimidated to start a new journal because I want everything to be perfect, and so going simple is easier not to make mistakes. But I'm really proud of myself that this month I decided to just really go all out, try something new, be brave, and I think it was successful. So I really hope you guys have enjoyed the setup and got a lot of good inspiration from it. And with that, let's get into the flip through. Overall, I am so excited to use my bullet journal for 2024. I have a lot of good ideas of spreads and ideas that I wanted to show you guys this year, and I can't wait to post all of my videos and show you guys my ideas on the internet. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, especially if you're a bullet journaling beginner. Definitely subscribe to my channel because I post bullet journal and productivity videos every single week. And also, like I said, I have a video for beginners to bullet journaling if you guys want to check that out and get some ideas from it, some more knowledge about the bullet journaling world. I don't know everything, obviously, but I can share my experience. This is my 5th year bullet journaling, and I am just so excited for what 24 is going to bring. If, however, you don't have that much time to bullet journal, like I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I do have an undated bullet journal on my shop. It is a complete bullet journal already made for you with 12 months of pre-designed, undated bullet journal spreads with art and everything already drawn in. So especially if you're new to bullet journaling and need kind of a little stepping stone to really get into it, this is perfect for you. You can fill it in however you want, color it in however you want, and just honestly add your own pizzazz to it. So if you're interested, I'll have a link down below to my online shop. You can check it out there, and if you guys buy it, I will ship it to you as soon as possible. So if you guys want to check that out, again, link down below. Thank you for all your support on this channel. I'm wishing you guys an amazing 2024, and I will see you very soon.